Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of our SUTD DSM podcast series. If you have missed the first episode, the link will be available down in the description below, so make sure to check it out. In this episode, we'll be featuring our very own Root Cabinet members, Sarah, Kellie, and Darren, and they will also be sharing with us their plans for the cabinet moving forward. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on DSM on 25th March. See you there.
Hi everyone, welcome to our second episode of the SUTD podcast. Today here with me are our Root Cabinet. So let's start off with a round of self-introduction, starting from our Root President, Sarah. Can you say your name, your current position in Root, and what pillar you're from?
Hi, I'm Sarah, I'm currently the president of Root, and I'm from DAI.
Hi, I'm Kellie, the Vice President of Operations, and I'm currently in CSD.
Hi, I'm Darren. I'm from EPD and I'm Vice President of Communications.
Right, welcome everyone. Okay, so as a new cabinet of Root, and they're kind of representing the entire student body in a sense. So what changes do you wish to see in Root under your leadership?
Okay, let's go. Okay, so currently, as everyone should know, COVID is easing out. So I was thinking as part of our 3 Vs during our campaigning period, revitalize, reallocate, and reciprocate. I think for me, my revitalize initiatives will be having more physical events.
Okay. Any further addition from the 2 VPs?
Nope, I think the President summarized it pretty well. Very good job.
Okay, then are there also going to be any more initiatives to better collect feedback so that you understand what the students are facing?
Yeah, actually for us, right, currently we are working on the Telegram bot to improve the Telegram bot, making it more known to students so that students will, whenever you have a problem, you can always approach this Telegram bot and ask questions. Then apart from that, I think the homely dialogue with senior management will always keep there so that it's a avenue for students to always ask the questions to the senior management. And I think as part of cabinet, what we always do is that we always keep our Telegram handles out there so that students can always approach us, or you can always slide into our DM for our Instagram account at root_centennial.
Wow, memorize the Root account. That's called dedication, boys. Okay, so other than that, right, is there any other envisions you would like to see in SUTD in general? Things that you think could be improved here in SUTD?
Okay, I think I can take this question. So I think the main focus for the R that I'm looking out for is reallocate. So SUTD tends to pride itself as a school that focuses heavily on group work and group projects, for example. So I believe that as cabinet, part of our duty is to ensure that this culture and reputation still maintains throughout the years to come, and therefore reallocate would serve to maintain the quality and attitude that students have during these group projects to keep SUTD a very encouraging, to maintain the level of encouragement in SUTD so that group work will always be, I would say, enjoyable and people will look forward to it. Yep.
So speaking of group work in that sense, right, from what I've heard, right, the percentage grading for group work has currently decreased quite a lot across the entire school. So in response to that, right, what do you think should be a better outlook for your so-called reallocation? Because decreasing the group work percentage means that students would actually focus more on their actual academics instead. So in that sense, what do you think can be improved other than just increasing the grade allocation for group work?
So definitely when we look at the problem in silos, for example, right, it's actually not a very accurate way of seeing it because this is from the view of students. So what cabinet has to do, like the three of us, is we have to sit down with the faculty and probably assess the reasons why the weightage for group work is going down. Once we have established the reasons, that's when we can probably put our heads together and find a more stronger argument to put forth to the faculty on how we can so-called increase the group weightage back again so that students do not feel like group work is something that can be neglected. We do foresee that this is a very difficult problem to tackle, but again, in order to maintain the spirit of group work within SUTD, this should be addressed. So to keep it very succinct, step 1 will be to talk to the faculty first. Step 2, we'll see how we can address the concerns that the faculty have. Step 3 will be probably on the ground feedback to get the numbers necessary to push for a change in faculty. Yep.
In that sense, right, would there be concerns that if we were to increase the group work allocation, right, that there are so-called quote unquote, let's say, slackers in groups, right? How would this like increase in group work percentage affect? Because having higher allocation for group project means that those who kind of like have lesser group members, right, will have to pull more weight in that sense. So it might be quite unfair for those students. And most of the time I'm not sure on the background scenes, right? But for term one, there were cases where there's a lot of students who didn't want to play their part. And feedbacking it to the professors, right, actually didn't change anything because they encouraged us to just work together, work harder, guys. So in that sense, what do you think could be improved or like the management ways that the school have taken?
Okay, I'll give the very PR answer from the school first, all right? So the reason why they're doing this is to simulate the real world experience. So when we go onto the real world, right, none of us, probably even Kevin, we won't have the luxury of choosing our group mates in the future. So therefore, having this kind of situations where you are randomly allocated into a group would seek to replicate that situation to train you for potential future circumstances similar to that. But that being said, I think the cabinet stance is that we do not feel that this should be taken to the extreme whereby groups of 4 and 5 are evaluated on a similar scale. So what reallocate also does is that we will seek to level the playing field between such group members so that maybe between groups of 4 and 5, more leniency or patience, maybe a slight deviation in expectations can be given to those groups of 4. But again, this is all very hypothetical and we need to discuss with the faculty first to see their stance. Because if you have a group of 4 with very strong powerhouses and then you give them a laxer grading system compared to a group of 5 with maybe a team that cannot work that well, the playing field will not be as level as we envisioned it to be. So therefore, this will be a very difficult challenge for us to address, but definitely the peer evaluation system currently in place would serve to, mitigate the downsides of the problems that you have surfaced. But again, there's always work to be done. So again, discussions will always go back to faculty and we'll see how we can refine the process of group allocation for starters, and secondly, how we can improve the peer evaluation system to reflect more accurately on the group dynamics and performances.
So in that sense of academic and like grading for group project, right? Do you think in the sense that the school should have more transparency in how they grade, especially now if you will consider like 4 and 5-man groups?
What do you guys think? Transparency in rubrics.
In what sense?
That means, okay, so pardon my interpretation, but the way I perceive a question is that you want the students themselves to know exactly what the professors are looking out for in
Like how did they get that grade? What went wrong and what went right?
For group work, actually, currently they have the rubrics, right? So when they return your project and return a grade, I know some professors, they do give you a rubrics, and then what I did for my term 2 or term 1, like, is that I really went forward to my prof and like, oh, where do you minus my mark from? a bit too picky, but like I would like to know where they were looking out for, and then I can always improve it. So I think, I'm not sure if all the prof does it.
Yeah, I think maybe not all the profs are so open to like us asking questions about the marks allocation and where we went wrong. But I think one thing for sure is that most modules actually provide you the rubrics, and definitely you can always look for the rubrics and see like what you're supposed to be aiming for, and there's always a band for you to aim for, no matter like which rubric it is.
So to maybe add on to that, right? So again, it's very, very difficult to speak for both parties, and it takes both hands to clap for such a particular subject such as academics. So for students, and what they need to do is you guys need to be proactive and constantly ask the professors for feedback. You can't just be sitting there like a sponge and accepting everything that is given to you. If you feel that the grade has been inadequately allocated, you have to speak up and ask for the reason why. If there is no reason, then you will have avenues to consult in order to get the answer that you need. But at the end of the day, if you meet the deliverables, then you should get your grade. But it's on your owners to find out what those deliverables are.
I think on the topic of group discussion, right? For the EPD pillar, I heard that there were some issues with the groupings for 30007. Would you like to maybe elaborate more and share your thoughts on the current issue?
Okay, so the process is actually very, very complicated, so I'll just keep it very short. But to keep it very simple, we were instructed to form our own groups before the term started. So naturally, people will want to form groups of 5 because the more members, the lesser work that each individual has to do. But what we didn't take into account, and what I would suppose that the faculty didn't take into account, is the different class numbers in each of the cohort classes. So with COVID restrictions, they do not allow interclass teams because EPD requires a lot of physical prototyping and discussions together. So what happened is that in fact, all 3 classes where the class numbers were not in multiples of 5, students had to make groups of 4. So for example, in my class in particular, it was originally 35, but then because of an addition of one new classmate, 3 of the groups of 5 had to be separated in order for that new person to join in to have a group to do 30007. So it's a very difficult area because if you put yourself in the shoes of the person that just joined the class, you will need the group to start the project. But for the groups that have already formed their groups of 5, it's in a sense being forced to separate and join a group that you haven't worked with before. So for both ends, it's very difficult. But what I believe could have been done is the prediction of such an outcome. And since EPD is a pillar with I would say quite accurately about 110 people, technically everyone can have a group of 5. And if you look back into the senior years where the seniors are all in groups of 5 and 6, right? Having a group of 4 for such a big project like 30007 is a really tall order. So this is a very brief summary, but yeah, there were a lot of ways that the professors tried to mitigate it. So I think they did their best on their.
So when they were asking you to form your groups beforehand, right? Were they told to ask you to form within your class or just anyone who's taking EPD?
It was within your class because of COVID restrictions, unfortunately.
So you already knew that your class had 35.
We didn't know the class size exactly. That's the thing. Like, because students were still allowed to transfer classes within the first 2 weeks, right? Like the class transfers will only be confirmed like at the end of the first week or second week. I can't remember very clearly. So the numbers were still very tentative.
Can I ask what's the reason for class?
Scheduling, for example, if you want to take a HAS module that can fit your curriculum, you need to transfer classes. Because for all 3 cohorts in EPD, we all have different schedules. Yeah.
Oh, so it was just a hindsight on their.
I'm not so sure if they anticipated it, but again, it's very difficult to deal with class allocation because it has to be a one-to-one swap. So yeah.
Similar back to EPD, right? Some people actually feedback that they would like to have like a studio or a room for their prototyping and projects. Do you think that is a must or necessary for EPD pillars?
Yeah. Conflict of interest, bias also, but I'll say yes. Okay, for a very simple reason. EPD is a pillar that is very prototype intensive. You need to be with your group to build together, to engage in discussions. So currently the 2 labs that we have access to is the characterization lab and the arms lab, but they close after a certain period of time and we do not have access afterwards. So this makes it very difficult for the group to come together and have physical discussions, especially when not everyone has Hostel. So the pillar did inform us that there's actually going to be a studio, Dyson theme that is going to be built in SUTD like sometime this year. The exact date is still not very sure. So that hopefully that can be a potential ground for physical prototyping. But for now, since considering the fact that 30007 has been pushed forward, I think a physical room for us to prototype will be very, very helpful.
Speaking of prototyping, right? One of the key so-called highlights SUTD like to promote would be the Fab Lab. And however, there's been differing opinions on the quality of the materials and tools in Fab Lab. So for example, some people believe that Fab Lab equipments are well maintained. On the other side, some feel that there's a lack of tools or like there are problems where like the bits have broke apart and stuff. So what's your current opinion on like the quality of Fab Lab? And what machines you would like to see or how could it be improved?
So when you look at this, when you look at Fab Lab in total, right, it's very difficult to say that the quality of the equipment is bad simply because we don't have a so-called benchmark to compare it to. Like what you said, Fab Lab is the trademark of SUTD. So if you compare to the other universities, I don't think they have such a holistic infrastructure such as Fab Lab that is designed for laser cutting, 3D printing, and etc. But regarding what you said about the quality of the equipment, in fact, I'm actually involved in the monthly Fab Lab operations meeting. So in there, they have actually expressed interest to, or not interest, but rather they are open to suggestions on how to improve the Fab Lab. So currently right now, Cabinet, what we are doing is we are not really focusing on the quality of equipment yet, but much rather we are pushing for a secondary access point to Fab Lab, considering how this particular term there is a lot of demand. There's a very high demand for Fab Lab resources. So I think we would attend to that priority first before getting to the quality of the equipment. But that being said, the staff has also mentioned that if there are any ideas on purchasing new equipment, it is possible for us to let them know. But again, they have to go through their own processes of vetting quotations, etc., before maybe actually purchasing the equipment, for example. So they're open to ideas, but we haven't really explored it yet currently.
That's a very interesting. So you said that Fab Lab is open to ideas, right? But in that sense, there hasn't been any like outlet for students to express their opinions regarding the Fab Lab equipment. Or if there is one, it is not well known among students.
Okay, if that's the case, I think that's quite rather true because the Fab Lab meeting is rather contained. So I think maybe what the three of us can work on is maybe establishing an open channel for the students to the Fab Lab to let them know that if there are any ideas or suggestions that they believe can be beneficial to the Fab Lab, they can actually just they can go through the Telegram bot. Shout out to SR for that. Or just let us know directly. Or if they are okay, then they can just write in straight to Fab Lab directly.
Through email.
Yeah, through email.
Another highly suggested or suggestion for Fab Lab is that a lot of students would like their 3D printers back in the cohort classroom for 24/7 access. Do you think that Fab Lab should go back to that again? Because for example, prototyping for my term last year, we had to go really early to put in our prints, and then we had to collect them at night. But the issue was that actually 3/4 of our prints failed. So there was a lot of waste of time, like rushing in the morning and then doing it at night. So do you think it'd be better if we have students have 24 access?
What do you all think?
Actually, as a class chairperson previous, actually this issue is raised, I think, almost every year. So for my batch, we also raised it, and actually Fab Lab, they expressed their concern and on like the maintenance of it, because once you bring it to your class, who will maintain it? They won't be able to like 24/7 help you guard it. And it also boils down to like the responsibility for the Fab Labs, the representative of the class for Fab Lab to like really guard the machine and like make sure everybody can use it. There was quite a lot of points raised. I can't really remember exactly. But I think end up my class and the cohort, we just like, oh, okay, we shall just keep it at Fab Lab, and then if we want it, we can just go down. But I heard that currently this new batch, they also raised it up in the recent cohort meeting, and Fab Lab will re-review this issue. And yeah.
Okay, we will excitedly look for the update. Alright, back to Fab Lab. So other than EPD, is ISC doing a project related to Fab Lab this term, right? Is it this term?
Actually, yeah. So we actually have this construct module. We're actually building a game. So some of the projects actually will have to involve like physical prototypes in Fab Lab itself. And at the moment, we aren't really using Fab Lab yet because we haven't gotten to that stage yet. And we're building more of like the hardware, like the ALU and CPU stuff first. But I foresee like in a few weeks' time, we'll be going to Fab Lab to do things like cutting wood or even using the laser cutters.
Okay. So for you're currently in term 4, right? So term 4 is known as the nightmare term for ISCD students because of the insane amount of workload and the infamous algorithm core mod. So there are many feedback that the algorithm mod itself is easy to understand or like understandable. However, the homework is insanely ridiculous. What do you think? Do you think these are true, and like what are your opinions on that?
Personally, from my own experience, I I think our batch has it a bit different from the past few batches because of the fact that most of us who wanted to go to ISTD actually took up the data-driven world module, where we got exposed to like some of the algorithms and data structures early on in term 3. However, that being said, when I came to term 4 and did my algorithms homework 1, I got the shock of my life, honestly. It was really, really different from what we learned in class and what we learned in core lectures. And I feel that with the addition of this thing called AdStem, similar to Piazza, the instructors actually open up like feedback channels for us to like give suggestions or like ask questions to the TAs and the instructors. And most of the time they actually reply quite quickly. And I noticed one thing recently is that the homework problem set 3, which was released I think last week and due next week, has actually been scaled down quite a lot in terms of difficulty. And compared to the first 2 homework and the first problem set, the homework set 3 is definitely a lot easier, and I finished it in like half the time compared to the first 2 homework lah.
So how long did you take for the first 2 homework?
Okay, so for context, for the first 2 homeworks, I took at least maybe around 3 sittings. I probably took around 8 to 9 hours or even more than that combined. Yeah, so the third homework I sat down today, just today, a few hours ago, and I finished it in about 4 hours. Although I'm not sure if it's correct lah, but I finished it in 4 hours, and I think that's a good sign.
4 hours is a good sign for homework. What is the time period you have for each homework submission?
Really, it's about 1 week for homework, and for problem sets, it's about 2 weeks. So homework is around 2.5%, and that's around 6 homeworks for the whole term. And for problem sets, we have 2. Each one is 10% if I'm not wrong.
Each one is 10%.
Yeah, for the problem set.
So your problem sets are a total of 20%.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So in that sense, do you think that the grade percent weightage is fair? Because there's so much allocation for like problem sets.
I feel the weightage is a bit off in a sense that the problem set topics and the homework set topics are like, they don't overlap at all. And I feel it's not very fair to be graded on like 10% on a topic that might be like harder for some people, and then grade 2.5% for something that might be harder for others. So I feel that if possible, that it would be nice to see a nice reallocation, or maybe in the problem set we could have like a combination of like the first 3 weeks of topics, so that like all students are exposed to like the different all 3 topics, which will be very helpful for like our upcoming midterm, which will be testing week 1 to week 4 content.
Speaking of exams, right, I heard that ISTD has a lot of quizzes for this term, and there was one in like week 3.
Yeah.
Which was 12%.
Yeah, it was a 12.5%.
0.5.
5% matters. It was a 12.5% quiz for construct, which was testing on like week 1 and week 2 material. And I think it was quite shocking at first, because a lot of us haven't really gotten used to like the grind of CSD, or like even gotten used to like how the whole mod even works. And suddenly we are thrown this like 12.5% quiz in week 3.
Then would you say that the course content is a bit too much? If you could have a quiz in like the 3rd week testing on 2-week material, it's quite a lot of material to go through in like 2 weeks. So do you think that this difficulty is justified? Or is it like, because some people do say that what we are learning in IC, it's not very really applicable in the end of the day. It's just additional info like dumped onto you that you just forget at the end. Don't quote me on that. I'm just stating the feedback. I don't want to get cancelled, but yes. So what do you think on that?
I feel like for construct as a module, right, it's quite dependent, because personally for me, I think I'm better at construct than algo lah, so I definitely like it, and I think it's still decent-ish. But I think having said that, like construct definitely does have a lot more quizzes and a lot more like content. Like the learning curve is pretty steep. I think the prof also knows that it's quite steep lah, but she definitely tries her best to explain lah. I have to give her kudos for that. Thank you, Prof. Net. And yeah, and that being said, we also still have another quiz in week 6, testing week 3, 4, and 5 content for that same module. And I think one thing to note for the module is that they actually gave us week 6 to do 2D across the whole CSD pillar, and week 8 is actually spent on 1D projects. So in terms of the content, right, while it might not look like it's evenly distributed at the moment, because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8 is empty. But I guess if you spread out across 14 weeks of content, which it should be, I guess the content wise is still okay.
Would you rather like evenly spread out like lower content than to rush everything in the front and then give your time to do at the back? Do you think this should be encouraged instead?
Personally, right, based on the past 3 terms experience where 2D was actually placed towards the end of the term, I think it was like a lot more helpful, and a lot of us actually got used to like the rigor of like studying first and then like applying your knowledge for 2D towards the end of the term. And having 2D in the middle of week 6, like in the middle of the term in week 6, is kind of weird and strange for I think a lot of us. And many of us are still struggling to catch up with like all the different content, because ISTD has been like a steep learning curve for most lah. And I think with week 6 having a lot of midterms as well, if 2D could be pushed towards the end, I think that would be definitely helpful lah.
Gotta train them hard in the beginning first. Make life difficult in the front. Then they will understand. Alright. Okay, thank you so much. So with regards to algo homework, I heard DAI also has that, right? So how many hours did you spend on your homework? Oh no.
I'm not someone who can sit down.
Is it double digits?
It is definitely double digit. So it's like the moment you just go class, then you open, then you read the long chunk of message. Don't feel like reading really. Then you close it and then you go back the next day. Okay, yes, I'll go homework. And then until like the last few days, it's still not done. And then I just get my friends for help. Thank you, friends. Thank you. But digit wise, definitely double digit. But like they wrote there on the course description, should spend 2 hours.
Maybe the hour should change to 2 digits.
They should write
2 days?
2 days.
Yeah, 2
2
days.
days.
2 days.
2 days sounds
2 days sounds.
So in that sense, do you say that those who like to do homework in the last minute struggle the most? Because it's a
And that was me initially. Now I'm trying to change
so
that.
they're teaching you the correct ways of study.
Thank you. Thank you, Algo Profs.
All planned out. Okay. So you're in DAI, right? And you're the second batch, is it? First.
At a pioneer batch.
Oh, so you're the first batch.
1 in 34.
Oh.
Special.
So you have one class only.
Yes.
Hi guys, please join DAI. So
I'm joining DI.
gotta spread the DAI propaganda. So since you're the first batch, so you only had 5 weeks of DAI so far. You have a lot of things to complain about so far. 5 weeks.
I think compared to or like like CSD or EPD, I still feel pretty chill. I don't know, but I think my groupmate has been helping me a lot. But one thing about DI is that we have product design studio and AI applications in design currently, which both are like project based. So my group has submission next week, which I feel like is still manageable at the moment. I don't say too early because I think the next half of the term there will be a lot of prototyping needed, which I guess we will be zoning
So
at
the
studio.
fight for Fab Lab machine is
It was
gonna be very high.
That's fine.
That's right.
So do you think there's concern with regards to like the timetabling of content right now? Because you're the first batch, they will probably be still trying out on like the timetabling. Do you think that it's too fast now, or is it like, as you said, you're managing it quite well, right? Do you think that it's perhaps a bit too slack?
Probably not, but I feel like they're actually building the foundation. So for product design studio at the start, they taught us how to the whole design. They recapped the whole design process again, and then we had a small activity for that. And then like after 2-3 weeks, another prof came in and then he taught us how to draw. My prof Michael taught us how to draw cubes. Although cubes like it seems easy to draw, but then when you think of perspective, it's actually quite hard. So I feel like it is a very good stepping stone for us to like build on our future products. So I feel like the foundation now is going strong. And for AI applications, they teach us Fusion 360 from scratch. So like we aren't expected to like, oh, you go and learn and then I expect you to build a bicycle. They teach you step by step on how to build a bicycle. I think it's useful.
Do you think that this like, so they're teaching you Fusion 360, right? Is it too convoluted? So for example, like in term 1, computational design thinking, taught Rhino step by step also, but at a bit of a times 3 speed. So do you think that you are managing it quite well, like just being clear in the instruction, or is it like touch and go quite fast kind of?
He didn't touch and go. He really went step by step. Okay, first step, open the file. Second step, create this file. It's a very when you look at his slides, you can really follow step by step, so you don't really get lost. And then for one class, I felt really lost, and I think he sends Prof. Edwin sends that. So Prof. Edwin actually emailed me after class and like, hey Sarah, I noticed that you need some help. Do you want to have a consult? Which I think is a very close and it's a very unique thing that probably DI can offer, so that because we are a very small class, so the prof attention is just to 34 of us. Shout out to Prof. Edwin, thank you.
How's the percentage allocation for AI? Is there a lot of focus on like projects or homework, or is it evenly spread?
I think both.
So more percentage is going to projects, right?
I remember having individual. Not yet.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no individual homework, do I? Currently product design studio, we are talking to our client company, and then we are ideating on their problem statement and trying to build the product out for them. So actually the homework is like the homework. And AI, currently we're doing a group report on generative design. So we come up with we look at the existing product and we try to improve it using Fusion 360, which is also a group work, a group report and present. I think it's quite nice. As someone that doesn't really like homework, I love my group still.
But do you think in that case there's too much focus on group work and lesser on individual?
Actually, for individual part, I think they try to make sure you know and like you are learning your stuff based on like also your class participation, and then also more like because there's peer evaluation actually. So like we get to rank our groupmates, but that's not really.
Yeah, that's not.
Please do not do individual. Thank you. Oh, I know you're watching.
Are they?
I will send them the link. Darlene, please watch too. Thank you.
Okay, then with regards to DAI, right? So from what I've researched, right, DAI has core mods in every term. So term 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So according to the GXP guidelines, you're not allowed to take a core mod overseas. You have to take a core mod in SUTD. So in that sense, does this limit the opportunity given to GXP students for DAI?
Is it common?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's 4 studios.
For studio is the common.
But each there's 4 only.
Yeah, but you capstone.
Oh wait, 4, 5, 6, 7. You cannot go overseas on 8.
Oh yeah. Right. So okay, that makes more sense.
Sorry.
Because I remember there's 4 core mods, so it's a design studio each term. But from my understanding currently is that my friends, they will just 4, 5, 6, 7, you all have core mods. So they just move their core mods from term 6 to. But if it's whether it's too much, we haven't really reached that point yet. So
That is true.
so actually, idea is a very chill gang in here.
Okay, but term 8 is capstone mod, right?
Mm.
So in that sense, would there be a bit of like limitations because they haven't learned what you're learning in term 6? You're overseas. Do you think this will cause an issue when it comes? Because they're learning in term 8 instead of term 6. So there's like a difference in skill level, you get what I mean?
Because I think all these 4 studios is all like project based. So project you can always learn. But whether the content wise, yeah, I agree a bit that you will be lacking a bit. That you probably won't have like, oh, your product design. Okay, now it's like your service design kind of like the way of train of thoughts that the prof taught us. You'll probably not have it for your capstone 7 first, but then you'll learn it in term 8. I guess with the small class, we are always sharing our materials.
Guys just learning the core mod overseas also.
They
Come back and learn again.
5 mods.
So do you think that perhaps in this sense there could be a bit of better like shifting in the course content for like just the entire pillar in the future? Or do you just want to continue like forever for everyone who wants to go GXP, you just have to shift?
I feel like all the 4 studio is the highlight, and it's all pretty heavy. So if you want to overload it or like you want to shift it, probably like term 6 1, you shift it to term 5, it will probably be 2. Which I think the shifting term 6 1 to term 8 is the best solution that you can think currently. Which we haven't really talked to the Zerlin about it. Zerlin is probably one of the in charge for DI, so we feel like if we have any issues, I can bring it up if there is a.
No, it might be a concern for some students. Okay, so speaking of GXP, is anyone of you all going GXP?
I think it's just me.
Oh, it's just you. So which program which country are you going?
For me, I'll be going to South Korea. I'm going to KAIS in spring 2023.
Ooh, so how was the entire application process? You could like just break it down into simple.
Okay, honestly, I think it was pretty simple. The school actually sent us a lot of guides and resources for us to refer to. They sent us a whole like OneDrive with like many different folders for each uni, and I think that was quite helpful. And I'm not too sure about the other pillars, but for CSD there was actually like a session conducted, a Zoom session, to inform you of like the different options, the different things you need to take note of. Like example, like if you want to do certain courses overseas, there's a chance you might not be able to fulfill a track. So they told us to watch out for such things. And what CSD actually did was to actually compile a whole list of on Google Sheets for us to refer to. So that because you know CSD is the biggest pillar, right? And there's definitely a lot of people applying for GXP. So we actually all send our possible like credit mapping documents to the CSD pillar admin staff, and they actually help us to compile it into this spreadsheet where we can actually just go in and see like, oh, if let's say I want to go to KAIS, maybe somebody else is applying also, and then maybe they want to take this course, and then they already sent it. So has it been approved for credit mapping, or has it not been approved, or is it rejected or pending, etc.
So I heard you have to make up your own like timetable, is it?
Yeah.
And you had to get like the pillar to approve it. So was the entire like process very difficult, or like did it take a very long time?
I think for me, because I wanted to take a healthcare informatics minor, so I actually started planning ahead of GXP. Like
So early did you start planning?
I think at the start of term 3, I was looking at courses to take in term 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 already. So quite early lah, a lot earlier than I think most people would. But yeah, I guess that's just how I am. But
It's a good trick. Good thing. It's a good thing. Be proud of it.
the CSD pillar staff the admin staff are quite friendly, and one of them actually like, I emailed both Irma and Felice, and both actually like replied my email pretty quickly, and they helped me to like look through my module plan. I came up with a whole Excel, and I gave them like many different options, and I'm very grateful that they looked through everything, and they told me like which is possible. Like if I want to take the AI track and a healthcare informatics minor, is it possible? If I want to take a data analytics track with a healthcare informatics minor, is it possible? And they helped me to look through everything. And they even scheduled like a short like 15-minute call on Zoom to help me go through everything, and they guided me to the right resources and like my pillar mentor ahead of like even enrolling in CSD in term 4. Yeah, and I think during the GXP process, we were actually advised to actually email Irma and Felice also, and I think a lot of students were frantically emailing, but I think from what I heard they replied pretty quickly, and most of them got like satisfactory answers. So thank you.
Did you all try to apply?
Nope.
So what discouraged you all from?
I think it's because I didn't see any courses that I was interested in that were offered. Because personally, I'm someone that is more invested into healthcare. So looking forward, the timeline didn't really allow me to travel. So because I had some commitments in Singapore, so I think the opportunity that I will go for is the JLP instead. So I didn't really see a pressing need for me to apply for the GXP and compete with the other people. Yeah.
For me, just probably no personal preference towards going. I rather just like even when I applied for uni, I didn't really consider all the other uni overseas.
So as you said, you're going for GLP. So can I ask which one you're?
The ideal one is Stanford lah. Yeah.
They haven't got back to you.
No. So for our batch for GLP, right, ours is pushed back to 2023 because we were supposed to fly last year during our summer vacation, but because COVID was at its peak then, so it was pushed back to 2023. So therefore we would probably have to reapply again towards the end of this year. I would speculate. Yeah.
So okay, it's just gonna be for your batch then. But if you apply, if you're going for summer 2023, that means that your compulsory internship must be done this year.
That is correct. Yeah.
Are you concerned that perhaps like since you're only you finish term 5, right? Will you not have like enough so-called quote unquote maybe like skills to take on like an internship that you're looking for?
I think that's a very valid concern, but so what was actually raised in one of the previous DSMs was that so when I was the moderator, I tried to push for the term 2 students, which was my batch then, whether they could get their internship approved during their summer vacation since we're not going for GLP. So what the officers assured us is that the reason why they didn't want to allow for term 2 students to get the internship to be so-called officialized is because we didn't have the necessary skill sets. So right now the rearrangements in the I would say the academic calendar, I'm quite confident they have taken that into consideration, and therefore they are supposed to be able to give us the official internship during this timeline. So I would quite confidently say that after term 4 and term 5, I'll have the necessary skill sets to go look for an internship. And anyway, I don't think that's a super big area of concern, since internship is technically for you to learn also.
So as you said that the school did not want to like recognize the internship done in term 2 because of the lack of skills, right? However, there are some students who already did internship before coming to uni. For example, I did internship before I came uni, and the sort of reason we were told that they will not accept the term 2 internship is because we didn't clear the UPOP module for internship. And some people actually feedback that like they've already done internship, their experience, right? There shouldn't be this blockage that blocks them from doing internship. So what are your opinions on that? Other than the fact that lack of skills, do you think perhaps like the school could recognize but do not make it as like the compulsory internship that you have to go through?
I think if I'm not wrong, it's possible to include your side so-called I would call it side internships in your, for example, your resume or your CV. But because the one that's going to be so-called endorsed by the school, right, is most likely going to be one, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so I believe that in order to make it so-called the best one, they will want you to be fully prepared. And as I would say tiresome and long those UPOP modules might be, they actually serve a very concrete purpose into helping SUT students like ourselves market our skills and abilities into the working world. Because being inside engineering school, for example, maybe all we are trained to is to perhaps think outside the box, how to apply our skills into the real world. But what we probably would not learn from textbooks or professors is how do we prove to the industries that we have these skill sets. And that's what I think the UPOP modules are trying to achieve. So by so-called it is a form of a restriction that cannot be avoided, but this form of restriction into only officializing the one that is so-called much later on during the sophomore years, I think there's a very strong backing behind it, simply because you will want the best internship so-called under your watch to be officialized, and that would probably bring out a much greater purpose or result compared to having one of your previous ones being the one that's so-called officialized by the school.
So SUTD only endorses one.
In the long run, they will only put in one inside your, I think it's academic transcript, if I'm not wrong.
So if you to delete one in the break after term 5 and the summer for next year, they will only ask you to pick one.
If I'm not wrong, yes, you would just need to put one inside the academic transcript. It's like the one that will be like so-called signed or like approved by the school. But you can still put in the rest inside your CV and resume. There is no restrictions on that. So it may appear to be a big issue, but it's actually not, because the more internships you do, you can actually just put it inside the CV or your own resume that you yourself will be putting forth to the other schools anyway. But the transcript that's going to be issued by the school, they will just include that one.
In that sense, right, I feel that perhaps there's not been enough information passed on, because a lot of students do not know that the school only officiate one. So a lot of them think that why wouldn't the school recognize I did an internship during the summer break this year? So perhaps do you think there should be more ways the school can like have a channel for information to like students other than just like once in a while a mass email?
There's definitely quite a significant information gap, I would say, between the purpose of UPOP and the reason why they would officiate the thing. In fact, whatever I just said is it's on my end quite theoretical, and it's what the seniors have also like supported as well. Because when they get their transcripts and you look at the way that it was written, right, you would really feel the impact that from the way that the school has written about it. So from that feedback from seniors, I think it's quite a accurate extrapolation on our end to say that it is a necessary. Okay, I don't know, not really necessary, but there is a very strong reason why the school is pushing for that. But yes, to answer your question, I think there's an information gap that has to be breached. If students can see the reason better, then they would be Mm,
Understanding.
yeah, I was gonna say compliant, but nah, yes, understanding is better.
Yeah, speaking of the information gap, there's been like students do not really know where they should go to like find people, and there's been always a question of what's the purpose of the one-stop center.
Mm.
You all know what the purpose is?
Press, any idea?
I went there to settle like finance.
I heard they move, right? I heard they move.
That was when I was little one student. So I'm not very sure.
The only other avenue that I have sort of so-called used the one-stop center for is for those like official parcels that were delivered to the school. So that's where you will go down there and collect. But other than that, yeah, honestly, I'm not very sure.
So in a sense, there's so-called a lack of like information center where you can go and like talk and seek for like advice immediately, right?
If I am not wrong, in Freshmore we were each given a I wasn't referring to the
What kind of information?
counselor thing.
For example, if you have something you would like to feedback to, you couldn't go to like this officers directly and like feedback in situation. You have to go through SR instead. So in the sense, do you think there should be like a place where you could like just so convert the one-stop center into like an information help desk? Something like that.
So you're like referring to like an information hub where students can just access everything for information.
Yeah, where they can like give like where they are facing a situation problem, they could like go there and seek for help regarding such situation as
Physical or virtual?
physical.
Physical. Oh, wow.
It's a bit hard for the one-stop center staff to know everything because I feel like the officers in the office have always been like changing, doing their work. So they know their content better. So usually what we do is we just approach the office for help. Because like they will know it better. Like if I want to ask anything about my career, I'll just find my career coach, that kind of thing.
Speaking of career coach, right? Do you all actually like actively seek them for help? Or do you just like, oh, I know I have a career coach. That's it.
I know they exist. I never approached them before, but I know that I think the importance is that you know that when you need help, who to find. Yeah. And I think that's made quite clearly. Like I know that for my academics, I know who to approach. Because I just look in my portal under my mentor. I can just see the name and I can always email him.
So none of you all have actually tried to, right?
Career no.
No.
No. Okay. And I guess I cannot ask anything regarding the whole.
Oops.
It's fine.
Time to find my career coach soon, so you can ask me.
Fourth episode. Okay, so back to the whole career and internship support, right? Do you think that so currently our whole internship support is through GEMS, right?
GEMS portal, yes.
And there are internship fairs, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
However, these internships are kind of like capped at like a certain year and above. I'm pretty sure the freshmen are not allowed to go. Do you think that there should be a reason why they would cap?
You're talking about the Telegram message that they.
So yeah.
Yeah. So recently, someone from CDC, she actually approached and then she sent the email and Telegram out to the whole school. And I think it was quite clear to say that it's for term 4 and above.
Yes.
Because I think there are always limited slots that companies can offer to SUTD for internship. And as a point from CDC, I think they will always like that they can prioritize those students who needs to clear the internship because internship is a graduation requirement. So who will need it? Term 4 and above first, because like I think for term 2 summer students, they will even if you do an internship, it won't be recorded. But I think the schools still encourage you to like spend that summer term wisely. You can always email companies and like ask them for internship, because that's how I got my internship before uni too. I just emailed to the company and I'm like, hey, I'm looking for internship, will you want to like and then like this is my resume, do you want to like hire me, that kind of thing. Like they never stop you, so you can just always find companies.
But do you think it's fair that they have to like cap this entire like, cause sometimes you just want to know also, but it's like you're capping this information to just only people above. Like we are not allowed. Do you think it's kind of fair in that sense, or is it just, or do you think it's justified?
it would be quite hard to say, but I think what we can maybe look at it from the students' perspective. So while the term 2 students may feel that it may be a bit unfair because they just want access to the information, right? But you can look at it in the form of giving reassurance to the seniors because they don't need to be worried, so-called. They don't need to be as worried as if they were competing with all the term 2 students as well. Because like what you mentioned earlier about the GLP timeline being pushed back, if they do miss this last window for an internship, right? So they have two options, right? It's either they give up GLP and they find another internship, or they can't graduate and have to take another year. So I think so-called restricting the flow of information, I would say it's the lesser of the two evils because it would give our batch maybe a bit more reassurance knowing that we will have okay, at least we don't have one more batch of students like competing with us. And plus, I don't think this kind of information it shouldn't be like you cannot find online one. Yeah, so I think what the school does to those information is they fine-tune it and they streamline to the point such that students like us, we know when we look at it, oh, this is exactly the type of internship I want, instead of having to troll through like websites of information, reading. But I think that's what the internship fair is for, giving us bite-sized information that delivers just the right amount of information we need. But if there are term 2 students looking to get that information, for example, I think yes, it'll be a bit tedious, but with a little bit of digging, I think you can find it. Yeah.
Then in that sense, right, do you think that there's enough internship for you guys? If you are so-called worried that there won't be enough.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
I haven't sourced my internship yet.
I think last year I tried to go on my portal to look at the internship opportunities during summer period, and I would think there aren't really a lot, and it's really not meant for people in term 2 batch. Because last year when I tried to look at it, I think it was the period where the current term 7 students are going to term 6 or like they're after their term 5 period. And I think for the term 2 students watching this, would encourage you all to find your own internships outside of the portal because they're really not meant for you lah. And ultimately I feel like the whole idea behind this whole internship and career fair, another side approach could be like for term 7 students who are going to work soon to actually find like their future job. And I think that as
Networking.
a term 4 and term 7 student nearer to graduation, naturally they'll be more worried about such things and finding jobs in future. So definitely I think to, like Darren said, like reassure the students in these 2 batches, I think it has to be done this way.
So you went to see the type of internship that was offered, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. Don't worry. Do you think that there's a wide range of like companies that are providing it, or it's very limited?
From what I remember, I think there was quite a big range across like all the different pillars at that time. Like back then there were 4 lah, but I think there was like at least a few like, or like quite a number for each pillar and each like specialization per se. And I think one thing the school also does is also like encourage students to go and do their own research or like self-source if they need to. So definitely there's always the option there, I feel.
Okay. Right, thank you. Now let's move on to housing. So all 3 of you are in hostel, right?
Yep.
And we have 2 house guardians over here.
With our head school here.
Yes. Wide range. So everyone here is in hostel currently. So there's been some feedback about like the maintenance and the quality of like some of the housing facilities. For example, like our floor toilets is a bit questionable quality, or I can say. So do you think that this is true with regards to like the general opinions of the housing population, or like it's just those who are very picky?
I think, okay, toilet, the pantry has always been like an issue that my residents have been like telling me. Firstly, I know that the cleaners, they do come quite regular to clean the toilets and like make sure that it's clean. But it's usually the end of the day when we start using toilet and like go bathe. And that's when actually I think it's our responsibilities because we are really adults and you can always flush the toilet properly and make sure that it's clean for the next user because you don't like to enter toilets that are clean. So I think if, as much as hostel and house guidance, we are trying to push this thing, like to make sure everyone be aware of what you do, be more responsible for your actions. I feel like it's also from the residents' point of view to like also take charge.
Mm,
The max we can do is always to help remind you, because I don't think it is the cleaner's fault or the cleaner's responsibility to take care of our living. We're not having like a maid or a nanny in our hostel. It is about independence in hostel.
Wow.
Independence.
Yes. Other than just let's say the common facilities such as like the toilet and stuff, what about like the kitchen and like the laundry room? For example, if you look at Block 59's laundry room, it's actually very dirty. And in that sense, can you really blame like students' responsibility? Because for example, right, in the sink, right, the dirt is from like the fan. I don't know if you have checked it out. Like the fan, it gained water, right, and then it's like all clumped up and completely clogged up the sink, and it has not been cleaned at all, regardless of like the maintenance that was done. So in that sense, do you think like the cleanliness can be improved?
I didn't see the sink that day, but I think that's always something that we can always raise up to housing to like make sure that they also do their cleanliness maintenance for the washing machine, because I know they have monthly washing machine service. But I think that can be something that they also look out for when they do the maintenance for washing machine.
Similarly, there's also been quite a bit of concern regarding like the kitchen facilities, where like, for example, the sewage does not seem to be very good. So when people are washing their plates, right, there have been cases where the floor, there's the drains, they start spurting water out. Yeah, and the sink gets clogged all of a sudden. Yeah, I have sent multiple feedbacks to housing for that, and they do fix it. I'll give them props, but then the next time I go back, it happens again after like a while of washing. So we're not too sure about that issue also.
I don't cook. I don't even eat, so maybe.
Okay, I think we can answer this the same way I think Sarah like addressed the previous concern. So I think this is again a two-party thing. So what we can probably do is push a bit more on housing to keep up the maintenance of the kitchen and the facilities. But on the students' end, I think we also need you guys to really exercise a bit more responsibility in that sense, because like what she said and what you've mentioned also, the pantry is a very so-called unclean area, and the reason why clogs happen is because people wash food into the sink, which is not supposed to be the case. And well, if they do that in the kitchen, that can maybe explain why that happens as well. And we can even extend this all the way to the laundry room for example, if people just wet the floor and anyhow they please, instead of just being a bit more careful with their clothes, it can probably add on to a bit of the uncleanness, for example. And I think just one particular peeve on my end is that I don't think it takes a lot of energy or strength to press the button on the paying machine. So I don't understand how sometimes when I go to pay, I can see the whole LED screen just being pushed into the box. So I do not think it's the fault of the housing of
What block are you from?
57.
Okay, so 59 has a cleanliness issue, 57 has a button issue.
Yeah, it's not the button, but the screen when you press.
Yeah, it's bent.
No, yeah, it's not that, but they push it all the way into the box. I don't know, like that's a huge amount of strength just to pay. So
Take my money, take my $1. Just take it, come on.
it takes both hands to clap, okay?
Okay, another facility. Okay, I don't think this is students' responsibility, but have you all been to like the meeting rooms or like around the block?
I have our cabinet meeting in the meeting rooms.
Yeah.
Is it the ones with the auto sensors?
Yeah, I think so.
Is there auto sensor?
It's
The 59 one.
59.
Yeah, there are some rooms with sensors, but the thing is that they will automatically off every 40 minutes. But the sensors are not reactive very well. So if you wave your hand, it will not turn back on. You have to physically get up, walk like 2 rounds around the room before it turns everything back on. So it disrupts the workflow for many students who are studying in there, because the entire room just plunge into darkness. And then everyone's just like, well, time to take a walk, I guess. So in that sense,
It's reminding you to take a break from studying.
some people don't like to be disturbed. That's all I can say. So in that sense, there have been some suggestions to add infrared. I don't know if that is really, but do you think that can be improved? Like it's a serious enough situation that could be improved further in the future?
Honestly, I think it's the first time we are hearing this because our meetings are never ever kept to 40 minutes. So
We have 3-hour meetings and
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah,
I think
our-
it's not the room.
It might not be the room, it's only certain rooms.
I understand,
I think we should
but
try that room next time.
sure. Yeah, I mean the idea of an infra is definitely on the table, but again we need to hear what the officers have to say about it first. If the one question I guess we can all take away is if they do install the infrared in all the meeting rooms, are we all prepared to pay potentially higher a higher fee for housing? Is that an agreeable thing that all of us, all the hostel students would be willing to like agree on, or would it just be I wouldn't say small, but would it just be from a not as majority pool of people?
Okay, so the last question for housing would be: do any of y'all stay on level 12?
Nope, I've never gone above level 5.
I used to stay at 11, I guess.
Okay, so those who are staying near like the gardens around the school, do y'all face a pest situation?
I think back on level 11 there was quite a lot of bugs, and even like when moving into hostel this last when y'all were term 1, I think I heard some feedback from some of the residents on like level 11 and 12 that there's such pest issue, and it's quite common, especially if you're on 59 and like the window and you are facing school. Like it's more open air, I guess.
So should the school provide pesticide? I guess it would because the garden is not. Would it be in that sense? Because there's been a lot of complaints of like ants and just insects in general coming into the room.
Do they have a lot of trash in the room?
But it's the entire floor, not just like one person.
Understandable. What do you guys think? On the table to push for I don't know, fumigation of the garden.
From the garden.
From the garden.
Then you're gonna ask everybody to close the
Close the windows.
And then if they don't close, their room is gonna be fumed.
Actually, I vaguely remember seeing an email saying that they will do something about pests. Yeah, but I'm not sure how regular that is. Yeah.
Hopefully, wait and see.
We will surface it and see how it goes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we'll end off the whole meeting with the most controversial topic of all time,
Meeting. Wow.
Meeting. This is a meeting.
Oh.
perhaps. The canteen.
Oh.
Yes. So we understand that the food has been an issue and has been a pressing issue for a very long time. We get it. We're moving on from there. Let's talk about the sitting issues instead. So currently the government has already lexed up to 5 people sitting. However, an issue is that majority of the seats in the canteen are actually still made for 2, even though you could technically sit 4 people on that square table. And the safe distancing officer has been actually going around for those who sit more than 2 in those rectangle tables, forcing them to split, which is a problem already because the canteen doesn't have enough seats. So people rather just congregate on one table. So do you think that the school should relax that restriction and just let 4 people sit on the table?
I think from a school point of view, I get where they're coming from because firstly, when you're eating, you're taking down your mask. So when you take down your mask, the transmission rate will be higher. And then looking at the current situation, the cases are increasing and the school is also very concerned about students' health. So initially, that was one thing that we wanted to push the moment we get elected. But looking at the current cases, we decided that it won't be good for students' health because by taking down your mask, eating with your friends in canteen, you are very most likely to like chit chat and stay there for very long. So that is something we'll look into it, but not at the moment.
But the argument would be that the government has already allowed 5 people. Why would the school not let us do that? Why isn't the school if the government already allow us, right? Why should the school stop?
I think we did surface this concern up during one of the meetings in student relations with the officers. So I can't disclose too much of the information. But what you need to take note is that even though the government releases its for example easing of the regulations, right, the school does not exactly follow the government. It's not like they are ignoring it per se, but the school takes the instructions from MOE, not straight from the news. So there could be differences between what MOE has instructed the schools to do and what the government is announcing to the public. So without that full I don't know, manifesto of information of what can be done and what cannot be done, I would say the school is also rather in a tight spot, because I think they will also want to address the shortage of seats in the canteen. But like what Sarah said, I think we would push for this, but we really need the cases in school to be a bit more contained first.
So it boils down to lack of information between the school and the students.
Because even we are not aware of what MOE is giving to the school. So all we can do is probably just give a stronger push from like what the students need and want for officers to consider, and hopefully they can ease it up once the cases in school are more stabilized. Yeah.
Other than the seating issues in the canteen, right, there's also been some concern regarding like the lighting and ventilation. So I know SR has pushed for a few fans in the canteen, and there's a very big fan at the entrance.
Yep.
However, that fan has not been on at all for the period that it's been there.
No.
So it's just there. We know why.
Unfortunately, no, we don't.
Actually, I can't imagine if it's on though.
Yeah,
If
it
it's
sounds
on-
like it will cause more problem if it's on,
Yeah.
because it's a very big fan. So why
But
do
I
you have
feel
a
like
fan
the
there?
small fans are pretty useful. At least
Mm.
because it's placed in front of the stores, especially the Japanese style when there's all the smoke coming up, right? The fan actually helps to ventilate. But regarding the big fan, we haven't really follow up to that yet.
But the lighting is also some people have feedback that the lighting do not on regular time. Not too sure about that. And there's been cases where the lighting in the canteen completely blows and just there's been situations I've eaten in the dark before.
What timing?
It's definitely it's like 6+, and then the lights just shut completely. Like the entire canteen just had a short circuit, and it wasn't fixed for the entire day. There's been cases in that sense, and we are wondering like, should there be a faster reaction? Because for me it was still somewhat bright because the sun hasn't fully set, but for later students it might have.
See. Yeah, I guess it's something we can
Suggest.
we can suggest to OSIF to have a quick line of communication. Because if I'm not wrong, for the study rooms or meeting rooms near the MRT station, right, I think there's a direct line to OSIF, right? If you want to get the lights fixed or something like that.
There's always hotlines in rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, even that one.
Yeah, I guess we can try and push for that in the
There's no
canteen.
hotlines in
There's not
the
one really.
canteen.
Yeah.
And I think the last issue a lot of students face is that the canteen closes quite early, and perhaps it's understandable if it's like maybe 9 or something, but like the canteen closes at like 7, like stores start closing early, and a lot of students end class at 6. And sometimes if the lesson drags or they have extra work to do, they have to stay for a while longer. And then by that time they go down to the canteen, right, there's only like 1 or 2 stores left to eat. And sometimes these stores don't even want to sell food. So it becomes like a shortage of food available for students for dinner, especially those staying at hostel.
Yeah, this has been quite a recurring matter. So because once you go into your pillar years, for example, right, you realize that there's no such thing as a standardized timetable. Our dear VP here,
I have lessons from 6 to 8 tomorrow.
I have it yesterday.
yeah. So I think it's not impossible to push for an extension,
Because
ask for an extension. I
if
guess.
you making the by extending the hours, it also means that the vendors will need to work later. And if they work later, that means they'll have a shorter period to prepare for the next day, or like because they usually come very early in the morning also. So that's also something that we need to think about, because the vendors are quite tired in some times of the day.
Right.
Also.
So in that sense, other than just perhaps like the vendors, right, do you think there should be alternate like food options for students? So there is chef in a box at the hostel area, but do you think there should be like more different like vending machines with like food so that you can get access to them 24/7? Because pick and go is expensive.
That is true. That's true. Okay, so what I'm getting is you want more food. Okay, not food options, right? That because
No.
that problem is already.
That problem everyone knows.
Yeah, but so it's more of how to put this?
Accessibility.
Food sources.
Yeah, food sources for like
SUTD.
maybe those after CCA.
Mm.
It's very late. Grab is expensive also.
Meal prep kinds, is it? Like,
Perhaps microwavable food or like just because there is a vending machine in the hostel, the pizza one, I think, but it's not working. So in that sense, like we maybe push for more vending machine or like fix that.
so like more of those on the level 2 of ISH, is it?
Actually, there's like 3 there already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, but one of them sells snacks. One of them sells ice cream. There's one that sells ice cream if I'm not wrong.
Wait, I talking
Oh,
about
the-
the.
oh, yes,
I
I
talking
saw
about
it.
ISH one. So
Oh,
ISH
ISH.
one, there's Chef in the Box, there's Sabons, and there's also the salad one.
Right, but the options are very small. Like salad, chef in the box runs out very fast.
Oh, that's true. That's
Mm.
true.
Okay, I'll contact my ex-colleagues.
Yeah, so in that sense, do you think it might be good for more vending machines? Maybe not just in hostel, but those in school also.
Do you have any suggestions on where we can potentially place them, I guess? Because that's also quite rather important. Yeah,
Near the lifts?
near to the list.
I think one issue is also that we're not really supposed to be eating at Albert Hong, right? So there
Mm.
might be a concern on whether people can actually buy food there, and then if they buy it there, then where do they eat? And if let's say they're not allowed to unmask at Albert Hong, if you put a vending machine there, then how are they gonna get to eat the food? What's the point of having a vending machine there? So I think maybe these are some things that the school also has to consider, and that could be a possible reason why there isn't something yet.
But that's definitely still on the table. We can just
Yeah.
probably discuss to see how we can improve the food sources. I would assume that the main focus here is to cater to those people, to cater to the after hours after school.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
There's a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid point. We'll bring it up.
And yeah, that's all we have.
Wow.
Wow!
Meeting evaluation
It's a
day.
meeting evaluation.
It really is. It really is. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for contributing and sharing a lot of your opinions for the past hour. And
Just
tolerating my
watching. Good job.
difficult questions. But yes. Any last words? Comments? Contributions?
Stay safe lah. That's very important.
Stay safe, don't get COVID. Alright.
COVID.
Alright. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Have fun.